Hey Al, how are you doing? I'm really excited. I'm here before 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I said that I was going to be doing a Facebook Live at 8 p.m. and I thought I'm just gonna hop on a little bit earlier and allow you to settle in and come in. If you're watching this in the replay, please put hashtag replay. I need to know that you watched it, but I'd like to know when you did, okay? Because it's actually better if I can get the time that's going to work for you. That's going to work better for me. And I want you here. I want you live because I love your questions, okay? I love your questions and I love your comments and I love your heart. So when you hop on and when you join me, it makes me so happy. It makes me so happy. And the occupants in this wonderful place that I live, the people who dominate my heart, they're both nice and noisy a little bit there. So it's basically my fiance and our dog playing, which is really awesome because it adds some bubbliness to this. Now, why do we need that? Well, I'm talking about fears tonight, and it's 8 p.m. It's at night, and I'm talking about fears, and I'm going to be very real, very raw. I'm just going to like really cut to the chase. And the reason I'm going to do this is because fears need to be slayed. End of story. Fears are not supposed to be entertained. They were never, ever, ever meant to be entertained. Fears were never meant to be entertained. Okay, so if you're watching this on the replay or you're watching this live and you agree with me, I want you to say yes in the comment box that fears were never meant to be entertained. So what is the purpose of fear? What is fear and what is it supposed to be? What is its function in this life that we're living? Because let's be honest, if we were all asked to give up one thing in this world, we would give up our fears. We would just be like, here, take them. They're heavy. It's too much. I can't do this. I don't need it. It's stopping me from doing really incredible things. And I know that you agree with that. Yes. So why I think this is really important that you join me tonight and that you watch the replay and that you let me know if you're watching the replay. If you're watching it live, you also please tell me where you're watching this from. So I'm in Toronto and it's about 8:02 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So Chrissy, where are you watching from? So let me know where you're watching from so that I can just thank you for joining in. Out of all the things that you could be doing with your time, you're here with me today. So that's really great. And what I promise you is that I am going to address some fears and I am going to slay them here with you. And what I ask is that you be open to receiving the message, which is going to be the sword that we're using to slay a fear. Because what is a fear? It is an unfounded belief. End of story. Fear is an unfounded belief. It is very real. It is experienced at a very real core level, but mentally it's not anything functional. It's almost like what is this appendix? It's like the appendix to the human body. It's there. It's great that it's there. Thank you for giving me the love while you join in. Thank you. Hi. So we're talking about fear from a few levels. And the first level that I'm going into is the idea that fear is an unfounded belief. It is an unfounded belief. Now, fear, however, has biological roots, and it is in our DNA as an instinctual mechanism designed to protect us. It is, in fact, the reason why the human species has survived everything that it has, which, you know, as I grow older and I look around, I realize was largely self-imposed, but that's another topic for another day. However, what I see is that we also misunderstand fear's primal responsibility. And fear's primal responsibility is to keep us safe. So think about that for 1 second. If fear is here to keep you safe, when did it become this thing that stops you from moving forward? When did fear stop serving its purpose in keeping you safe, in keeping you alive, in keeping you well, in making sure that you biologically were going to exist and continue existing? When did it cross over to the realm of everything stops? Everything stops. So I know you have Okay, when we took it too far, when the ego kicked in. Okay, that's interesting, Nadia. So when the ego kicked in, let me see, is there a way I can invite you to join me? Because I'd like you to explain. I'd like you to go deeper into that. Are you able to, where can I invite you to join me? Do you know? Sometimes I know how to use this thing and sometimes I don't. Let me know if you do. Constant messages. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll keep an eye out for your comment. And I like what you said. Let's talk about that, when the ego kicked in. Now, one thing that I'd like to say about the ego is that we are now in a place and time where we are being challenged to use words that really convey what we are trying to say. We are people who've been inundated with the internet and everything that has come through the internet. Like, there are no blockers, there's nothing, you know, like it's just one big endless information highway. And what you find is that words that once held meaning stop holding meaning. You know, words like authentic, words like ego, in fact, words like happiness. They're words that are understood intellectually, but there is no emotional connection or a visual or auditory or any kind of sensory connection to it, so that it's lost its weight in gold. It's lost its weight in that. So what I'm going to challenge you while we go through this process of facing our fears is to take a look at our language, but to take a look at our language at a deeper level. Now, if you want to convey a feeling or a thought or an intention, or you have to make a decision, think about the words that you're using, because those words are the ones that are going to inform the future of that decision that you made, the thought that you have, the move that you just made. Does that make sense to you? Do you get that? Okay, so tell me what your thoughts are. Okay, what about you, Jonathan? You're a business person. What do you think about that? Okay, so this is the idea, right? That there are words that are being used, that right now is a really good time to take on the challenge of really thinking about the words that we use when we're trying to communicate or convey messages to each other, to go beyond words like authenticity. Okay, really it pertains to online marketing, how you convey your value to people on the online space. So you have those words that people hear over and again, and it becomes disassociative, like they can't connect it to an emotion. Right?
That's interesting, because like, yeah, I would say caring, but I mean, everybody's showing that right now.
The caring?
Yeah.
Like yes. So yes, what does caring mean? What does it actually mean, right?
Exactly. Like some people are able to do more than others. Some businesses are able to do more than others.
So John is saying that some people are able to do more than others when it comes to caring. And there's some businesses
that
are being opportunistic. So yes, what is the value of caring in this sense? What is the value of caring? And that's, again, the weight that we put behind our words, which is a really great opportunity for me to come into what it is that I want to speak about today, which is releasing fears. One of the best ways to figure out what's truly bothering you is to just listen to the way you describe situations. You don't have to wait for this experience or experiment, because it's going to happen shortly, maybe 5 minutes after this Facebook Live. Now, why do I say this? Because we repeatedly bring to the surface the same pain or the same difficulty or the same wound or the same situation. We repeat these things until they are resolved. And you can rest assured that if you have something in your life that's not completely aligned with who you are or where you need to be, that it's going to recur and it's going to keep coming back until you deal with it. And you're going to know that very shortly, because you're going to sit down and something's either going to bug you, piss you off, make you uncomfortable, make you want to cry, something. And I want you to pay attention to what that thing is, because that's the thing that you need to take a look at and apply this to. And notice if you have several of them. Notice if you have, just notice what's happening and what it is that you're dealing with. What do you think about that?
I think that's a good point. A lot of those things are going
Okay,
to
you gotta come. We have to make sure that we hear you.
I was saying, I think that's a good
Okay,
point.
so this is John Carter, and he
Hi.
is an accountant, which is awesome because we can always rely on good factual advice when it comes to important legal matters, government, taxes, the above. Anyhow, you were saying?
You've thrown me now completely.
I'm so sorry.
What's
sorry.
The question again?
Yes. So we were saying that it matters.
So I was saying, yeah, well, and especially now because people living in close quarters, those fears are going to come out. Those times, right? They're going to happen. You know, just like when your loved one has to go out for something, you're going to worry. You know, like maybe you're worried about having enough of something or something along those lines, or worried about people who you can't see. So I think communication is one of the ways. Like we've been doing Zoom stuff with our families.
Yes.
And that's pretty fun. We're going to do a play date this Saturday. That's going to be interesting.
Yes.
But yeah, just some of the show you care.
Yes.
You show it the time and the present.
And by that you mean that it doesn't matter if this, let's say they say, okay, you can't meet each other. So most people would say, oh, we can't meet, too bad, right? But then it's what can you do with that situation to still meet your goal, which is keeping those relationships if they're important to you,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
You really will. Now, what about those who say, well, I don't have the time? And lucky for you guys, you don't have kids you have to run around with, or elderly parents, or, you know, they could say that we're privileged, and that's why we have the time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but at the same time, it's like that deprivation, and we're communal beasts. We need our community. We need other people in our lives. So, you know, it's going to be trying on people if it's not already.
Yeah, you're right. And so this is the part that I find interesting. And thank you for saying that. Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is the part that I was saying about primal instincts, that need for community, that need to be together, and that need to keep together is an instinct. It is for survival, pretty much like fear is an instinct, and it's for survival. Now, this is the thing. Nadia, hey John, his love language is quality time, Jules.
I still haven't read that one yet.
You kill me. I love it. His love language is quality time. Yes, it is. And it is my primary love language. So I'm very fortunate that I got someone who is the same. And the same goes with, the personality type. So I am a giver. And it was very important for me to be with someone who was a giver. So we have several personality types. Largely I put them in 4 categories. And one of them is giver and one of them is taker. Now, there's nothing wrong or good with any one of these personality types. It's just how you are. So the key is always, how do you take what you are and maximize the good and make peace with the part that's not so good, but also understand the role that it plays and just make this harmoniously work for you most of the time, if not most of the time, right? So this is one of those things. Now, what I would say is you're a giver if before you think about money, before you think about a favor being returned, before you think about anything to do with yourself, you give to other people. And maybe if you're like me, you've also wisened up to the fact that you can't always give and you're not always in a position to give, and you need to learn something called boundaries. So that's usually what lets givers down, is that they have these really big hearts and this huge capacity to give, but unfortunately they assume that everybody is the same. So when they meet others who don't reciprocate, they're always left like, why aren't you reciprocating? Why aren't you giving? Is it me? Is it something wrong with me? No, it's that we're all different types of people. We see things differently, and you just need to make peace with that and make it work for you. Now, the same thing about fear, folk. It's the same thing about fear. Fear is here for a very specific reason. It's to make sure that you stay alive. That's the reason why fear exists. Now, I read all these articles, and in the personal development world, there's so much information out there about how to tackle fear, how to deal with fear, how to escape, what are people describing? You can't even see fear. It's like talking about the wind. What are you avoiding? What are you dropping? What are you running away from? What are you doing? Anything. Fear is like air. What are you doing? So it's never really helpful advice. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Come on, speak the truth. What do you think, John?
Fear can be very helpful at certain times.
Fear can be very helpful at certain times, John says, which is true. So an example?
Like, fleeing a deadly situation, maybe.
Fleeing a deadly situation, maybe. Absolutely.
But there are other times where fear can stand in your way of achieving something.
But yes,
like
fear can stand in the way.
Every kid goes through that and learns how to swim.
Yeah, the first jump in the pool. And yet there has to be a first jump so that you can actually get the pool experience. Yeah, it's funny, the things we're always afraid of, right? It's always the first step. That's it. That's the only thing that kills us. The first step. Think about it. Of all the steps to get stuck, why is it that it's not human nature that we get stuck on the very top? Like when we're done, that's where we're stuck. We're stuck at the top. Why is it never that way? Why is it that we're always stuck at the very first step? Why? What do you think? We have negativity bias. Yes, yes, yes. Caveman fear, DNA stuff, like you said. Did you just blame everything on DNA? I love it. Okay, what do you think, John?
It is partially DNA.
It is partially DNA.
Some interesting people talk about emotions attached to my fear,
yeah,
attached to money.
Emotions attached to money.
Yeah, and fear attached to money.
And fear attached to money. Excellent. Which brings us into another point. And this is actually the next point in this mountain that I am having us all walk up. So that by the time I am done here, folk, you are maybe 2 steps ahead where you are right now. It'll be really awesome if this is successful, because then you're going to be like leaps ahead. And that's where I want you. For the most part, you know what you want, you know what you're doing, you know who you are, you know what you're after, you know what you've been through, you know what your strengths are, you know what your weaknesses are. You have a very good sense of self. But for some strange reason, when it comes to this one area in your life, or 1 or 2 areas in your life, you just have absolutely no control over it. Like it runs you, like it literally runs you, that you can't even appreciate anything else that's good in your life. Now, if that is who you are, understand that that is a fear that's holding you back. Yes, yes, yes. The cliche stuff. Yes, it is a fear that's holding you back. Now, I have given you the 2 definitions of fear. On a very intellectual level, fear is an unfounded belief. It's a fear. It's a future projection of something that may or may not occur. That's the definition of wind. And then we have fear, which is it's biologically imprinted in you. It's in your DNA. It's to keep you alive. It's the reason why the human species is as it is. Fear has a very important function. Now, my earlier question at the very beginning, about 18 minutes ago, I asked, well, when did that crossover happen? From fear being that very useful tool that kept us from being eaten while we were sleeping, to now being the thing that literally stops us from achieving our dreams. When did that happen? Now, we can blame this on history. We can blame it on biology, psychology, sociology, but what I'd like you to do is really consider this when it comes to different aspects of your life. In different aspects of your life, you will always come from a place in which it feels a little bit small, a little bit constricted, a little bit like you are forming. This could be like the start of a career, the start of a relationship, the start of your business. And what happens is, as you grow out of that shell, you grow a little bit bigger, and you get to the place where you are fine and you can go on your merry way. Now, the problem is when you are trying to crack out of a shell, and you're trying to grow, and you're trying to spread, and you find that you're severely restricted. And when you're looking around, you're thinking to yourself, well, what is it that's actually stopping me? Because I don't see anything that's stopping me. In fact, I see that maybe I am in more abundance than I necessarily should be. So you have a bit of that guilt that you're not doing as much as you should. Or you think you could, and what this boils down to is 2 things. And the first one is perfectionism, and the second one is is overly critical, being overly critical as a result of having very unrealistic standards for yourself. That's where those two reside. So when you take a look at that kind of picture, I don't know, like conditioning, I like that. Okay, so I'm just seeing that conditioning. That's right, conditioning. So it has a root cause, and the root cause is conditioning, which is taking away the whole biological aspect of it, isn't it? Isn't it? What do you think?
Conditioning takes away biological aspects of things. Our brains are wired for habit.
Our brains are wired for habit. Yes, because it's efficiency that it's seeking, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Common pathways, the same things firing every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, I mean, if you've always reacted to something with fear, the flight instinct instead of the fight instinct, that's the hurdle that you have to overcome.
Yeah.
That's the
yeah. So let's talk about the hurdle that you have to overcome when you're facing a fear, which is awesome. John just brought that up. So thank you. Now, this is the part that you really want to hear from me. Let's be honest. This is the part that you are actually watching this for. And you're like, okay, Julia, yeah, we get it. Now, can we get to the curing the fear part? So this is the part where you are tuning in. And I'm going to take it from the last thing that you said.
Okay.
Yeah. So the thing is, I'm not sure if they heard you. So do you mind coming in and letting us know?
What was I saying?
So we're talking about that conditioning and the wiring where it's no longer biological.
Well, it is biological, but our brains are wired for habit, right? So if we react the same way, if we do the same pattern, we're more likely to do that pattern. I've heard some interesting theories about how it can actually pass through generations.
Yeah.
And you know, the money effects of prior generations, like maybe if it was your grandparents who went through the war, maybe you're still feeling the effects that they felt from those wartime hardships.
Absolutely.
It's quite interesting. But like if we continue to behave in a certain way, it's easier to do that. It's harder to break that habit.
So this is where I come in. Now I want you to do this exercise with me. And listen, your fear is an unfounded belief. So I'm going to tell you how you can release some of your fears tonight. Some of your fears right now, in fact. But I want you to, and I'm using the word but really what I should be saying is, and I want you to understand that releasing your fear is actually not a scary act. Now, the reason why you might think that it's something painful or scary is because it's attached to the word fear. But if you can imagine fear is just wind, and all we're doing is just directing it or redirecting it, or we're just figuring out where it's blowing so that we know where to stand, then the way that you look at things changes, and it's for the better, okay? So what I'm going to ask you to do is you're just going to sit down and make sure that your feet are flat on the ground, and make sure that your shoulders are good, and that you start taking in some nice, deep, slow breaths with your mouth closed. Breathe in. Mouth open, breathe out. We'll do that 2 more times. In, out. On the next breathing in, you're going to hold it for as long as you can. Hold it and put your chest up toward the ceiling. Put your chest up. Imagine that there is the sun and that its rays are out, and you want to reach out. So you are going to be pushing up toward, and when you are done and ready, you can exhale through your mouth. And then shake it out a little. Excellent. Okay, so this is how we cure our fears. We role play. That's what we do. Now, what this involves is when you think about a situation in which you are afraid, you are going to give into either one of your guttural instinctual characteristics, your traits, they'll just kick in, and half the time you're not even going to realize that that's what you're doing. It's because you've been triggered. And when you're triggered, there's very little room and very little time for you to sit back and say, okay, to talk yourself out of an irrational response, because your response is going to have to do with two things. It's to protect and it's to defend. So what does that mean? We're either going to war and I'm slaying, or I'm driving my person far away where they can't be touched. And how does this work in relationships, in human connections, in anything like that, is that you have the people who lash out, or you have the people who withdraw. And that's how that plays out. And it's always interesting to see, because one of the things that you can always imagine when you look at each other and maybe start looking at each other from that point of view, is that each person is a world, each person is a country, and they have governing laws, and they have boundaries, and they have ways of being. When you imagine the ecosystem of an individual, it's almost like a whole universe unto itself. So it has its own measures for protecting its sovereignty, right? It's either going to lash out, or it's going to close up, clam up. And we see that again in nature, in different animals, especially sea animals, and in different ways how animals are built to protect themselves, and that includes us. So this is what is triggered by fear. And fear is that quick SOS delivered for maximum effect information that's relayed to the whole system, and it says danger, 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 death is here. So that's what fear essentially is doing. If you imagine like you have a fort or a fortress, whatever, and you have this person at the top, at the tower, where and that person's responsibility is to look out and see if there's enemies coming or anything like that. And if enemies are coming, then the person will sound the alarm. So that's what fear does. Fear is the alarm that says danger, 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 death is coming. And for fear to kick in, it must mean that things are a very terrifying level. And that's when you then fall into what would be normal for you, which is either you're lashing out or you're withdrawing or any one of those things. So, I seem to have a penchant for a lot of things that are the same. So I have the ability to lash out, and I have the ability to withdraw. I think you're the same.
Sorry.
That you have both the ability to lash out and the ability to withdraw.
Oh, definitely.
Both, right?
Definitely.
Or one?
What do you mean? One? No, I definitely have
both. Yeah. And no, most people I know have the ability to withdraw. This is very important to know, guys, because because when you want to think about how it is that you approach danger, you approach it the way you were taught by your mom and by your dad, or your grandma or your grandpa, the maternal figure that you looked up to, the paternal figure that you looked up to. So however it is that they responded to danger, that's what you picked up for yourself. So for example, if you're around people who used to withdraw or play the passive aggressive act, where like they retreat into a shell, they withhold things, they do that sort of stuff, then that's what you pick up as your defense mechanism. If you grew up with people who used to lash out, who used to make the loudest amount of noise so that it would intimidate others, like they were just your classic bullies, well, that's exactly what you're going to pick up. Unfortunately for I like to say 99% of humanity, I'll say all of humanity, 100% of humanity, we are always blessed with the DNA of generations. So if you have a parent who lashes out and you have a parent who withdraws, then guess what? You get both. You get to withdraw and you get to lash out. That's the reason why you have the two of them. If you're with someone who lashes out and someone else who lashes out, you pick up the lash out part. Very rarely will you have the other, and that's how it works. So this is a really good thing to look at, because it tells you how you are looking at fear. And that's what I really wanted to share with you right now, because I'm about to leave here in the next few moments. What I'd like to share with you is this. If you want to know what you're really afraid of, listen to the way you respond to things, just the regular things in your life. It could be anything. Just listen to your thoughts, pay attention to your thoughts, pay attention to your actions, which means that you need to slow yourself down so that you can start paying attention to the things that you're doing, how you're feeling, who you are. And you're going to start picking out, right, the very root causes of your fear. That is the thing that's holding you back from being that extraordinary human being that you know that you are. The thing that's holding you back. And what you're going to see is that it's lodged in words that you received or that you took as a young kid and didn't know any better, and then took them on as your own opinions. And because they form your opinions, they're getting in the way of your dreams because they have nothing to do with your dreams. And those opinions are so small that they force you to really shrink so that you can be the size of the opinion. And that's the reason why your life is falling apart, because you can't live up to people's small ideals. You can't. You can't live up to people's small dreams. You can't live up to trying to please people so that you can always be in their good books. That is such a low bar. It's so low, you can't fit. You know it. So you're killing yourself trying to make yourself into this very small thing so that you can be attracted, you can be accepted. Why? You know, so the key here is to be curious about what it is that your body and your mind, that your existence and where you are in your life today, what is that trying to tell you? Because it's trying to tell you something very important. And again, I said that if you want to identify those areas in your life, they are the ones that keep repeating themselves, so that in a few moments, maybe 5 minutes after I'm done this, you're going to find yourself repeating a complaint, or repeating a sigh, or repeating a wish, or repeating a desire, or repeating an old argument. You're going to find yourself repeating something, and I want you to pay attention to what that thing is, because that is the key to what is stopping you from fulfilling some of the best days of your life. Okay, questions, anything like that, let me know. I'm here for ya. Love ya.